can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. Anyone here for the first time? Maybe. Welcome. Want to share why you're here?
Yeah, I'm just.
Oh, he even stands up. Nice.
I have a long day at work, and we're going to go over here and hear about this. So it's time to do something new and catch some good vibes. So
Nice. Well, welcome. Glad you're here. So formal, too. Anybody else here for the first time? Anyone here for the second time or here all the time? Want to share why they keep coming back? Yeah, go ahead.
We live across the street, and we just moved in a couple months ago, so this is our second time. We really enjoyed it, and we're gonna keep coming back and
Nice.
hanging out, so.
Well, welcome back. And when you moved in across the street, they put on the thing that like the benefit of living there was you were across the street from here, right?
It's not amazing.
It was on the rental application. Yeah. Anyone else want to share why they're here? Still pondering why you're here. Like, I don't know why I keep showing up for this madness. I saw him. Why? Just why? As long as you know. Yeah, go ahead.
I know for me, I got doing it and super reactive and emotional. Not some of the things I've been trying to work on.
Yeah.
So if I could just slow my thoughts down, just gotta be more present,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be really great.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a life changer. If we can begin to slow just completely down everything, you know, the way we move, the way we talk, the way everything, if we begin to slow it down. And for me, slowing things down was never really a part of my life ever. So this practice has helped that tremendously. And I still feel like I go a million miles an hour, but relative to how it was, you know, the practice of just keeping the mind slower makes things a little bit easier. You know. All right, so we'll just get started with the meditation practice. For those who might be new or sitting for the first time or here for the first time, a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. Right? You're not going to float away, most likely. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. And the mind that races all day long is not going to shut off, unfortunately. You won't think nothing. Often people think that meditation is about thinking nothing or going blank. You'd end up telling yourself, think nothing, think nothing, think nothing, and it's kind of a waste of time. So don't judge your practice, right? We judge things all day long. What we look like, what we wear, what we eat, we're just constantly in these judgment modes. And the practice of meditation is learning to go beyond judgment and just abide in sensation of breath. You'll hear sounds. This is life. Life is filled with sounds, right? Practice of meditation is not escaping from it, but learning to get quiet and still within all the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on the cushions, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward, cause the back to straighten. If you're sitting on the benches or chairs, same thing, just trying to sit up straight. You want to be comfortable, but not too comfortable to where you fall asleep. I'll say things periodically to either remind you that you're lost in thought, or more likely wake you up because you've fallen asleep. Not the end of the world, but you didn't come all this way and got all this money to fall asleep. So do your best to stay awake. I'll guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, don't expect anything. You're just going to sit. And again, starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. Start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Going throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Gently guide the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Lost in thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath, you're There's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind. Whatever you're sitting with at this moment has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with anything but your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. He was a human being, no different than anyone in this room, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us in this room, regardless of where you come from, or what you believe in, or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get every day. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we respond to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how we respond to everything else that's happening throughout our days. So all we're working on is closing the gap, or the way you feel now is closer. How you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. but with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This is not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. Meditation is not an escape as often people think it is. It's not closing your eyes and pretending you're sailing down a river and looking at all the birds and trees and flowers and thinking everything is grand. It is direct perception into the present moment. It's learning to be with things as they are. It's becoming aware of everything we think, say, and do, and how our thoughts and words and actions impact the world around us. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's basically sitting and breathing and learning to be kind to yourself and everybody around you. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything outside of us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to what's going on around us, life gets a little simpler. But it takes time. So I just want to touch on something. I talk about this a lot, but I want to touch on it again briefly just because a few questions have come up recently that just remind me of how misunderstood this teaching actually is. And then we'll just open up to questions. But very central to the Buddhist practice and simply learning about yourself is the understanding of karma. Karma translates simply to the word action. The Buddha taught very clearly we generate karma 3 ways: body, speech, and mind. What we think, what we say, and what we do. That's in fact why the way I lead meditation, and I've done the same thing, led it pretty much the same way and said the same thing for probably the last 10, 12 years. With the body still at the end of meditation, the speech quiet, and the mind learning to settle. Those 3 things are addressing karma specifically: body, speech, mind. So we generate karma, what we think, what we say, and what we do. Now often, this is where the confusion comes in with a lot of people, is they think karma is about people or yourself getting what you or they deserve. Or often people think karma is what goes around comes around. Or if they do bad, that, well, they're going to get bad. It's coming to them. I'm sure no one in here has ever said that, ever. Right? But karma doesn't actually work that way. Karma isn't necessarily something that comes back directly to you. The mistake we make, I think, very often in this kind of Western culture looking at karma is that we think karma is all about us. What am I going to get from this? If I do good, am I going to get good? If I do bad, am I going to get bad? Karma isn't what we get. Karma is actually what we give. If karma is what we think, what we say, and what we do, then what we think, what we say, and what we do creates our immediate environment. That immediate environment then has a ripple effect and impact on those around us. So we would like to think that if I think good thoughts, speak good words, and do good deeds, that means my immediate environment is going to be great. Maybe not. I could think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds, and still get punched in the face, right? It's like, well, wait, I was just doing all this good stuff. How come someone hit me? Well, because I was standing in that spot, and they chose to do that. That was their karma, what they put into the world. So a metaphor I like to use a lot is when you play pool and you have a cue ball that hits the rack. And every time the cue ball hits the rack, all the balls go in a different direction. Our entire life, we are the cue ball. And so every person, place, and thing we encounter in our entire lives, we have an impact on them. So that's why the practice of karma in your daily life is to, as an expression says, to mind your karma, to be mindful of your karma. That doesn't mean to be mindful of what's happening to you, which is usually where people miss it. To be mindful of karma doesn't mean to explore, okay, what's happening to me right now? To be mindful of karma means be careful what you think and what you say and what you do, because that creates a lot. So it really wasn't my intention to talk too much on that. I just wanted to touch on it briefly. Karma is not what goes around comes around. Karma is not getting what you deserve or don't deserve. Karma is not if you do good, you get good. Karma is not if they do bad, they get bad. Karma is actually not good or bad. It's just the law of cause and effect. That's all karma is. The law of cause and effect. Things happen. We then label them as good things or bad things based on our perception, whether we like it or don't like it. Something happens to us, that's just happening. If we like it, we say, oh, that's my good karma. If we don't like it, we say, oh, that's my bad karma. You can call it whatever you want. It's just what's happening. So, our karma, individually and collectively, has us all sitting here right now. This is not necessarily good or bad. And I said this on Saturday morning. But somehow our entire lives, that's what makes this whole thing absolutely incredible. All the things that every person in this room has done, every moment of your entire life from birth until this moment, somehow miraculously put us all in this spot right here on a Tuesday at 7 o'clock. That's insane. That's the miracle of it all. That's the beauty of it all. So we might say if we come together collectively and, do some meditation and explore some things and feel good and happy and all that kind of stuff, then we might say that this is our good karma that put us here. That's great. And then all of a sudden, boom, something strikes. And there's a tragic thing that happens right here. We wouldn't like saying that's our karma because it's bad if something bad happened. We're often okay with karma when it's something good to ourselves. Karma is just where you are. Your karma's here right now. And when you leave here, not too far off, your karma, whatever you create, will continue. So be careful of that. So I'll stop there and just open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that's on your mind that I can address. Yeah.
Can I feedback what I think I've heard?
You can do anything you want.
Okay. Will you allow me to feedback what?
I don't really have the authority to allow you or not allow you. You'd be better off using the time to just speak.
Okay. So events are, and we choose how we're going to react to them.
Yeah.
If we react well, then we influence our environment in a positive manner. If we get pissed off, throw stuff around, that impacts it differently. If a group of us all react to events in the same positive manner, we're putting a lot more energy out there than if it's just one.
Correct.
And that's the beauty of the song.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well said. That's why I don't sit and stare at a wall and say this stuff. The idea behind Sangha, for those who don't know, community, and you can think of it from a community of a, sacred space, spiritual space, temple space, whatever you want to call it, is that if collectively a lot of people are thinking and working on, speaking good, thinking good thoughts, speaking good words, and doing good deeds, collectively, everyone in this room, the rest of this evening, and you can go to bed early if it makes it easier. But if everyone in this room does nothing but kind things for like the next 2 hours, right? And you better go to sleep now, some of you. If you do nothing but kind things for the rest of the evening, then yes, there's like 60 of us here that will bring positive thoughts, words, and actions into wherever we go. So yes, I think what you threw back is wonderful. The only thing I want to caution, you didn't say this, but I just want to add caution to you or anybody, is that just because a bunch of people individually or collectively bring positive thoughts or positive words or positive actions into a situation doesn't mean it's always going to be met with like hugs and smiles. So that's the only thing that and then the real challenge is, you're going to go be a real nice person, let's just say for the next 2 hours. And all of a sudden someone you're trying to be nice to doesn't really care. And you're met with resistance. Then what are you going to do? Because you're like, well, wait, I'm being nice to you. You're being mean to me. Screw you. No, that's the challenge, is that you continue to bring that into the environment regardless of what you're met with. Yeah.
Would you say that kind of ties into expectations and attachments?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if we go do a bunch of nice stuff, it's very difficult for us to do a bunch of nice things for people without having some expectation of something in return, right? We've all done things with this very, altruistic sense that we're being kind simply to be kind, right? We're helping somebody cross the street, we're helping a child, we're helping somebody carry something, whatever it might be, without any expectation tied to that. And those are really beautiful moments. But very often we're doing those things with some expectation. And, we're human. It's going to happen. But in that expectation, we recognize that attachment, that craving, that desire for that expectation to be met is the reason we're going to struggle and suffer and have pain, because as we all know, people don't do everything we want them to. And they never will. So for me, one of the best expectations I've had over the years through this practice is to not expect anyone to do anything ever. It makes life a lot easier. Yeah.
How do you get over attachments?
Is that the end of the question? No, that's fine. I just want to make sure. I didn't want to start speaking if you had okay, yes,
No,
perfect.
I can't probably word what I'm trying to.
No, that was enough.
Okay.
I just didn't want to cut you off if you had more. So I just came from a talk at San Diego State, and I do this talk with this group every semester, and the professor always asks me to give them homework. And I almost forgot, and then one of the students, the professor wasn't there today, and one of the students said, you forgot our homework. And so the homework is 2 tests, and they address specifically attachment. One is, do you ever wear socks? Yeah. Okay. In your sock drawer, and I'm not trying to get too personal, but in your sock drawer, are they all rolled up and matched and everything, or are they just scattered, thrown in your drawer?
It's like 70-30.
Okay, well, make it 100% scattered. Close your eyes, grab 2 socks. If they match, then put one back and grab another one. Basically, close your eyes, take 2 socks that don't match. Put them on your feet and wear them all day. You're already shaking your head no. You can't see it, but you're shaking your head no. What was your question? How do I get over attachment? You're not even okay wearing 2 socks that don't match. So my response to you, now that you've confirmed that, is you are never going to get over attachments if you can't wear 2 socks that don't match. It's a lot easier to just be honest with hey, I have problems with attachments and this is going to be with me the rest of my life. Your question should be, how can I cope with being very attached?
Yeah, there we go.
I don't like that question. I'm sticking with the first one. You had your chance. The socks, try it, and not by wearing jeans that cover them, right? It's a silly, stupid, funny example, but it shows us how uncomfortable we are with what socks we have in our feet. That's the most ridiculously insane thing. What are people going to think about us? What are we going to think about us? How are they going to judge me? It's just ridiculous. We're so worried about what socks we wear, but we want to deal with attachment towards, family, friends, loved ones, animals, cars, money, phones. We freak out over the simple, littlest thing. The second one, since you love the sock one so much, and you all can try this at home, right? I haven't shared these 2 in a while. Next time you go out to eat, when you go to a restaurant, what's the first thing you do often? You sit down, you look at what? Menu. Look at a menu, what am I going to eat, right? So the next time you go to a restaurant, sit down, person comes over to take your order, and just say, whatever dietary restrictions you have, maybe you're gluten-free, maybe you're vegetarian, maybe you have an allergy to peanuts, whatever it might be. So put those in there and say, please bring me anything on the menu that is gluten-free and doesn't have peanuts that is under $20. And the person taking your order is going to think you're a little weird, and you are for doing that, and that's fine, but that's the whole point, is to see how uncomfortable you are making this order, and then to see, can you even just eat food that's put in front of you? Or do you have to be so particular about making sure it's the food you want and served the way you want and prepared the way you want it? And this entitled idea of like, well, it's my money, I've earned it, I should spend it on the food I want. I want, crave, desire, suffering. Lack of gratitude, lack of appreciation, lack of just the ability to even go to a restaurant and have the money to buy food. And sure, one can argue, well, if I'm going to do that, I should get what I want. Well, trying to spend your whole life getting what you want is exactly the reason the Buddha said you're suffering. Well, I don't want that. I don't want to suffer. Then work on understanding what's causing you to suffer. And it's the fact that we can't wear 2 socks and we can't even order food that isn't exactly what we want it to be. I always suggest starting with these things, because otherwise you're never going to get over like real attachments, things that really matter. And that's okay too. But at least be honest with that. And then maybe next time we can address how to cope with not being able to move past attachments, you know? So glad you asked that question. Yeah.
I have a really hard time with the sock thing.
Yeah. You've heard me say this before too. You've been around long enough.
I mean, I have a pair of socks that aren't black. They've been sitting in the back of my drawer for, I don't know, 2 years.
And they match.
Yeah, and, they match, but
You won't wear them.
I'm cautious.
So if you didn't hear, he has 2 socks that aren't black and he won't wear them. Why not?
I just don't feel ready yet. but I am okay.
So I don't want to rush. Go slow, man.
Yeah.
You got a couple. You got next life. You can work on it then.
But on the other hand, I'm okay with ordering food kind of randomly. It might be an adventure. So why can't I have an adventure with socks?
I don't know. That's a lot of therapy to work through. I'm not sure. And it's funny because, and there's only a couple of you who are new tonight. Most of you, been through all this a little bit enough to know, like, if you're like brand new and you're like, I want to learn about Buddhism, and all of a sudden we're talking about socks and menus, and you can't really draw the parallel. I promise you, we are addressing exactly, in my opinion, what the Buddha was teaching, which causes suffering, which is craving, desire, and attachment, and ego, and sense of self and identity. And this label that we build ourselves up that say, I am this, I must wear this, I must have this, I must be this. And there's something really there. Put them on and then put black ones over? I don't know.
I was thinking maybe exploring it or letting it happen would be an adventure in itself.
Yeah, see what happens. And again, I mean, it takes, it's like we're joking and laughing, having fun, and you've been around here long enough, but it actually takes kind of a lot of courage and bravery to sit here and say, in essence, a bunch of strangers, like, I'm not okay wearing 2 socks that aren't black. But that's the first part, or a part of this path, and a part of this practice is to honestly ask yourself, like, what am I not okay with? And explore, why not? Like, why am I so uncomfortable? Why am I so attached to fitting into what our society and our structures have set up for us? Why am I not okay breaking free from this box that I have built or that has been built for me? And it is literally breaking through that leads to liberation, Yeah.
Sorry, what does Buddhism say about like unconditional love? I was kind of reading somewhere that Buddha didn't really advocate like romantic relationships.
Yeah, you should read a different book. So there's a couple things. The Buddha was a monk, and when he taught, very specifically, he was teaching 2 other monks and then other nuns. And that at that time, the Buddha, the monks, the nuns, they chose to renounce worldly pleasures and they chose the celibate path, and they chose to remove themselves from those situations. They're very clear about that. No physical contact, nothing, right? These are, and in a modern day today, Theravada Buddhist monks very much live the Pali Canon, and they follow these rules. Mahayana Buddhist monks and nuns, for the most part, same thing, right? You have Japanese tradition where about 1,000 years ago in Japan, the emperor, whoever it was, said Buddhism's dying out, so our Zen priests, we're going to allow them to marry because then they'll have families, and then the children will grow up and run the Buddhist temples. So like Japanese Zen priests, they're kind of like monks, but they're also, in loving married relationships, and they have families. Like if you go to Japan, you'll stay in a little temple and they'll say, yeah, this has been in our family for like 600 years. And it really has. It's just been passed down. So there's that side of things. Then there's the billions of Buddhists in the world that are married, are in love, are in honest, committed relationships, have families, things like that. Absolutely. My knowledge and what I get from Buddhist teachings is that the Buddha said that the Buddha would infer, have absolute unconditional love, but for everyone. Not just those we pick and choose, right? Now, when I talk about unconditional love, I'm talking about that differently. You should not have romantic relationships with everyone, right? Two different things, but unconditional love for everyone. To love everybody unconditionally. Pretty sure lots of religious famous folks have said that kind of stuff, right? So it's unconditional love for everyone, regardless of the situation. Romantic relationships have one, right? I mean, the first 5 precepts very clearly address that, right? No lying, no killing or no harming, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, and no intoxicants, things that alter the state of mind and make us do stupid things. So the precepts right there really address, even from like a romantic relationship, intimacy, things like that, those things are all extremely important. That's why I kind of joke about it. So if you're reading stuff that's saying the Buddha was like against unconditional love or romantic relationships, he taught to lay people, tons. There are great sutras, the Vimalakirti Sutra for lay people. So there are sutras and teachings, and even in the modern day, really Buddhism is geared towards lay people, especially in Western culture. We're not a monastic culture. We're a culture of lay people that have relationships. Some good ones and some bad ones. And if we actually integrate what the Buddha was teaching, loving kindness, compassion, joy, things like that, into our relationships, we would have better relationships. Does that help? Yeah. Yeah, Jim.
Doesn't unconditional love mean no attachment?
No? Oh, say that again?
Unconditional love mean no attachment.
Yes, sorry. I didn't hear you say no attachment. Yeah, yes. Yeah, to love, absolutely. To love unconditionally is to not attach. So often, I talked about karma earlier, but another one of the kind of misunderstood teachings in Buddhism is non-attachment, where often if you're new to it and you hear non-attach, people, for whatever reason, and this is just my experience with it, they quickly change non-attachment somehow in their mind, and the word that then comes out is detach. Detach is like to me at least, when I hear that, it's like a cutting off of. Non-attach means to, yes, have unconditional love for everything and everyone, all space, all time, all directions, but to not attach to any sort of outcome from that, right? That we have unconditional love for others, but we recognize that those others, they're also their own individuals. They have their own lives, their own struggles, their own challenges, their own traumas. So we're not putting expectations on them, and we're also not attaching to them being a certain way. We're just loving them unconditionally, right? Yeah. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah.
So I wanted to bring up something that you told me a long time ago when I first came here.
Yeah.
And I was struggling. So this is, I think, the nature of these types of question and answer sessions is really important because number one, it humbles you when you hear other people's experience. But number two is people come with these things from different angles. This is what I was struggling with, which was sort of the Buddhist premise of things happening around you and and where you act versus react, you act with intention. Was different than my particular issue, which is it came from my own self-destructive behavior, came from within. And what you brought up, and I just, the only reason I want to bring it up now is because I think it'll help people get a little perspective about the Buddhist concept of shooting the second arrow. And how the first arrow is out there, the one is done.
Yeah,
And so then, how do you stop yourself from shooting the second arrow? And
definitely.
The hardest part of that sort of triple answer was forgiving yourself. That's a real, otherwise you sort of get back in the loop again, shooting the arrow. I found that to be really powerful, and the way you explained it was helped get some perspective from it.
Yeah, definitely. When we find ourselves in situations where, like you did years ago when you started showing up, where we've done some things that maybe we shouldn't have done, right? I know that's not too many of you in this room, but maybe a couple of us have done things in our lives that we shouldn't have done. And when we do those things, we start to feel angry, guilty, depressed, sad, disappointed. All these emotions start arising within us. And so that feeling of anger or sadness or depression, whatever it might be, that's the first arrow, right? So if you're angry, just be angry and address the anger. But often what happens is the anger then turns into, I'm sad because I'm angry. And now you're angry and sad. And then now you're depressed. Now you're depressed because you're sad and you're angry. And then you're just miserable because you're miserable and depressed and sad and angry. Just be angry. Really kind of capture that one emotion and recognize, I hate to say this, but the emptiness of it, which doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean it's not there. It just means it's temporary. All these emotions that arise and pass are all temporary. So if you compound that first arrow into a bunch of other, painful, negative, hurtful emotions, whether it's towards ourselves, which was your case, or projecting out towards others, when we're angry, sad, and depressed, and we take that out to the world, that's a nightmare, and I'm speaking from personal experience. Yeah. So thanks for sharing, and welcome back. Other thoughts, questions?
Completely different subject. Can a Buddhist be a police officer?
Yes. The question was, can a Buddhist be a police officer? A Buddhist can be anything. It's like, when you tell a child, you can be anything when you grow up. It's kind of the same thing, right? I've done a lot of work in the military for years, and I've never been in the military myself, just to clarify that. And I've done meditation and Buddhist classes in the military for years, and especially doing once a month at MCRD, Marine Corps recruits, young 18-year-old, fresh out, 120 kids every Sunday morning. I'm there once a month through a Japanese Buddhist temple, and we lead Buddhist classes to Marines who are trained to serve and protect and kill, right? And they ask the same question quite often, right? And my answer is the same, yes, right? Now, the reality is most people join the Marines, most people become police officers or things like that, not with the intention of harming. That's usually not the intention behind most people who go into those situations or those professions. They go into those professions with this idea to protect, right? Years ago, I was doing a 10-week program for active military folks that were working through PTSD. And this was a 10-week program. 5 weeks in, one of the guys, and I'm not a therapist, I'm not there to counsel or get into their personal lives. I was there to do meditation, that's it. And this guy came up to me 5 weeks in, and he said, Jeff, I really can't do this meditation stuff. I said, why not? And he said, well, I'm a sniper, and I don't want to turn into a big, I'm paraphrasing, a big wuss, right? And I said, well, let me ask you something. when you do your job as a sniper, if you lose concentration, you lose focus, what happens? He said, I die, people around me die. I said, well, don't you think it's important to develop a level of concentration and focus that you can take into everything? Then he understood it. It was towards the end of the group. I walked out. I called a good friend of mine who's the named psychiatrist. Got on the phone with him and I said, hey, I told him what had happened. I said, I think I just made this guy a better killer. Very seriously. And he said to me, how do you feel about that? I still remember walking at Point Loma Naval Base on the grounds, on the phone with him. And it was about a 3-minute conversation. He said, how do you feel about that? And I thought for a few seconds and I said, he's not always going to be a sniper. That's his role right now, right? He's going to get out someday. He has family. He had a wife. He had 2 kids, right? And so his inability to stay present, stay focused, and pay attention, and the triggers that if he didn't learn something, we're going to continue to have a complete ripple effect onto many people other than just his role in the military. And so for me, there's a lot of Buddhist people I've known over the years, or Buddhist teachers, that won't actually teach Buddhism in the military because they have problems with that. We're all human. I'm not there to judge what anybody does, right? It doesn't mean that I as an individual believe in war and believe in killing, but I believe in human beings, and I believe in giving them skills and tools that they can bring into their lives. So it's not the direct person you're asking about, but hopefully that's relative to it. A person can do anything and practice Buddhist teachings. It doesn't mean that we're practicing all of them, you know. School teachers could be really bad Buddhists. No offense to any of you school teachers, but you understand my point? The profession doesn't make you good or bad Buddhist. It's like my master used to say, you can shave your head and put on a robe, it doesn't make you a monk. It's what's in your mind and what's in your heart, you know? Now there is, and I will throw this out there, in the Buddhist teachings on right livelihood, right, the Eightfold Path, and the Buddhist Sutras talk very clearly about certain things one should not do as right livelihood, right? Running a gambling house, being a butcher, running a brothel, right? And there are others, but those 3 things, he says, are not, they're in the Vinaya that are not right livelihood. I've not read or seen anywhere that says, don't be a police officer, you know? Yeah. I don't know. We're about done. What do you got?
In today's world, there are sheep, there are wolves, and there are sheepdogs.
I didn't even know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Being a police officer.
I don't get it. Yeah. Anything else before we close? Yeah. All right, so we'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most.